Hello guys, if you are watching this video, this is my first video, and in this video I am going to explain you exactly how to set up a Claude Code for a data engineer project. So this is not basically for a data engineer project, but you can use it for any project. I'm just using the data engineer project as an example, and especially I will be taking the any healthcare related project. So the reason why I'm taking healthcare related project is so that I can show you lot more examples in real life how to exactly use the Claude Code setup.
So data engineer on GCP isn't just a tool. Basically, GCP contains a lot of services and a lot of operations. For example, GCS uploads, cloud functions, Dataflow pipelines, BigQueries, IAMs, and lot more. So if you just paste that chat into the chat GPT or any AI model, every time you need to give lot of instructions, rules and regulations and everything to the AI model, whichever LM you use. So that's the one of the main reason the setting up the Claude Code is very important. So it exactly knows your GCS paths and your beam transformations. Or for example, if you take the healthcare related project, the patient names or patient details, we should not be logging that in anywhere in the logs or in anywhere. So these kind of rules and regulations, everything Claude Code knows that once we set up the Claude Code setup in detail. So this is the basically the architecture which I am going to use in this video. So if you see, the architecture is very simple. So we usually upload the batch CSV file in the GCS bucket, and for that we basically use the basically upload script which takes this CSV file and it directly lands to the GCS bucket. So as soon as the CSV file or any Excel file lands into the GCS bucket, the cloud function will trigger, and internally this will call the Dataflow pipeline. As it is a CSV file, currently I am considering it as a batch pipeline. So once the Dataflow pipeline has triggered, so basically internally it does some transformation. We don't want to go deep dive into this transformations and everything in this video. So once the Dataflow pipeline has completed its job, at the end it stores the data into the BigQuery. So basically, I just explained it in detail. So if you see here, the BigQuery, the table is patient data raw table. Here we usually store the patient details like patient names and date of birth and everything. So in the there is other table called patient data staging. So here we should not store the patient real names or date of birth. So we need to usually hash those IDs and everything. So this is what in the data is storing in this table, and the patient invalids, any invalid patients and everything will be storing in this table. So this is the other analytics related data and everything will be storing in this table. So the reason why I'm saying all this is I'll just take this all this an example while setting up my Claude Code. So I hope you understand the basic architecture of this pipeline. So first thing we need to do is to install the Claude Code. So basically I use Cursor IDE for this. So if you are using Cursor IDE, it's very straightforward. You just go to this extensions here and search for the Claude Code, and you will get the Claude Code for the VS Code. You just install it. As soon as you get it installed, you will find it somewhere here this way. So okay, once you get installed, the next step is the main thing is to create this cloud.md file. This is like most important thing for the Claude Code. It's like an brain for the Claude Code. So here, before that, if you wanted to create it by default with a Claude Code, you just put a command like /init. It will automatically create a cloud.md file, but I would strongly suggest you not go through with that which Claude has provided, and you yourself manually update this cloud.md file. So I'll just show you how exactly I did it. So I just mentioned the title of the project or whatever it means, and then the main thing is quick commands. Here you basically mention all the important and mostly usable commands, everything here. Then comes the architecture part. So here in the very high level explain the architecture, and one main rule is never ever cross the number of lines more than 500 or something in that range in the cloud.md file. So if you see, the my cloud.md file is very short, but if you see here, I have referred the detailed architecture documents and everything here. So that whenever the session starts, Claude Code will go through this cloud.md file, and internally it will go through these internal documents. So this is about the architecture part. Now comes the project structure. So whenever you create this project structure, Claude Code, whenever we are asking a question, it exactly knows which is present where. So that's the main reason of putting the project structure. And the other important thing is rules. So these are like very important, especially for data engineering project. And see, each and every project has their own rules and regulations. So I would strongly suggest you guys to put your project specific roles here. Then is the other thing is skills. I'll come to this part later, how to create skills and everything. But assume we have created the skills, we will be mentioning everything here, what skills we have created and what is that skill is about. Same comes the sub agents. I'll again come to this part later. Whatever sub agents we have created, you need to mention it everything here. And yeah, this is basically the simple and most effective level of creating the Claude Code. Okay, now coming back to the again here. So the one most important thing is .cloud. I'll just try to zoom in this part. So if you see here, I have few things here. One is dot agents, other is dot hooks, other is rules, skills, and settings.json. So let's get started with the rules first, because this is like most important thing. So if you see, I have few rules here. One is Beam Dataflow, BigQuery SQL, and Cloud Function, data governance, and Python ETL. So I'll just take few example and explain you what is these rules exactly are and how exactly we need to use it. So first I'll take this beam.dataflow example. So in simple terms, we are going to say to Claude that whenever you are going to make any changes inside this Dataflow folder, I do have also Dataflow folder here. So whenever the Claude Code is going to make any change under this Dataflow folder, so you must need to follow these rules. This is what exactly we are going to say to Claude Code. So here, it's up to you. Like, you put what all the rules you want, everything in detail. For example, I have mentioned the structure of this file structure and everything. For do function, I mentioned it, the rules. For BigQuery writes and for pipeline options and for testing purposes, everything I have mentioned all the rules here. Now I'll just go to the other example called I'll just take this one, cloud function. So for cloud function also, whatever changes you are going to make inside this cloud function, you are just gonna follow these rules, no other option. So if you see in the cloud function, I just given it a role, what is this cloud function, everything is about. Then all the configuration related rules, error handling related rules, and the way of deploying and everything. So this is all about the cloud function. And most important thing for any data engineering project is the data governance. So this basically applies to the all the files and folders present in this project. So this is especially very important for a healthcare related project. So if you see, for example, patient identity information, this kind of information we basically should not log or print anywhere, not even in the error messages. That's like one of the most important rule Claude Code should follow. Without having this, Claude Code will just basically print it, print the maybe the first name, last name, or date of birth, or any primary key in the logs. So that is not the good way of using it. And the other there may be few other rules which we can use it here, the environment safety rules and compliance related reminders and everything. So it's totally up to you. I just took an example of one here. You can just put anything or whichever necessary according to your project use case. So basically these are all about the rules. And one key thing here is, so when we trigger, so basically whenever you are trying to ask a Claude Code any question, so it will automatically maybe assume the Claude Code is trying to make the change in this data flow folder. So whenever it is making the change here, it will automatically consider these rules and everything. We don't need to explicitly mention the rules. So that's the one best use of the Claude Code. So next comes the skills. So this is also very important thing while using the Claude Code. So basically what exactly we put here is, just as imagine there are tasks which we frequently keep on using. For example, upload batch. In this project we usually upload the files to the GCS buckets. That operation basically upload batch. So we might be making maybe lot of changes in that part of the pipeline. So instead of mentioning every time the the core functionality of that specific part, you can just create a skill here. So for example, let's take this example, upload batch. So if you see the description, batch upload patient CSV files to GSV landing bucket to trigger the data flow pipeline. Use when uploading the data, uploading batches or sending to GCS files. So whenever this kind of operation is happening, you can just directly use this skill and it will follow all these commands and everything as a prompt. So one key thing here is, if you see, there is a key called disable model invocation. So what this basically does is, when it is true, then we need to explicitly mention this skill. For example, there will be cases where disable model invocation is false. I'll just take an example. So here I didn't mention it, right? So what exactly happens when we mention it false or we didn't mention it is, assume we are giving on prompt to the Claude Code to do some transformation or whatever. If the transformation is related to this specific skill, it by default uses this skill instead of we explicitly providing it. That is the main difference of using this value as true and false. Okay, coming back to the skills again. So if you see, I'll just take an example of maybe adding a beam transformation skill. So if you see the description, you add a new Apache Beam do function or transform steps to the patient data flow pipeline. Use when adding validation rules, enrichment or new output fields. So in simple terms, we usually have a data flow pipeline here in our project. Obviously we'll be making a lot of changes in the Apache Beam do functions, or maybe updating it, or creating a new transformation function or whatever. So in such cases, every time, instead of creating a detailed prompt, you can just create this skill and make it cursor use it. So first thing is checklist. So the thing, why the main reason of using it is, the Claude Code should make sure all this checklist has been completed successfully once the task has been done. So other thing is do function template. Here basically we usually mention the templates which we usually use in our project. So there are like many. I just took this as an example. For example, if you take any other skills, maybe front end or back end related skills, they will be following a single format or single way of coding and everything. So we can mention all those rules and everything under this skill, so that whenever we have provided the specific task which is relevant to that skill, instead of it hypothetically thinking or hypnotizing by itself, Claude will stick to this skill and all the rules and templates or whatever mentioned here. So that's one of the main reason of using the skills here. And I'll just also go through any one of the skill here, maybe pipeline debug. This is the 99%, this is the most common thing which we usually ask for Claude Code: debug the pipeline. So if you see the description, debug failed in GCS uploads, Cloud function triggers, Dataflow jobs or BigQuery loads into the patient table. Use when pipeline fails, Dataflow errors and Cloud function is not firing or triggering. So it explicitly mentioned it, the diagnostic order. So in which order you need to debug it. So if you see, there are like steps here to debug the pipeline issue, and we also mentioned the common failures. These are the common failures which may occur before even you exploring other things. First, check if the issue is because of these common failures. If this is not the case, then think out of the box. And yeah, so these are the basic, I just mentioned two here, but if you have more, you can just add it under this skill. So basically this is all about the skills. So next comes the agents. So agents are simply like a mini Claude Code. So if you see the way it structures is, we'll just give an agent a name and the description what exactly this agent needs to be does, and the tools and the model which needs to be used. So here if you see, the prompt is like, you are a senior data engineer reviewing Apache Beam pipeline for healthcare project or pipeline. So as it is a Beam reviewer, basically we will give all the review checklist which it needs to be used. For example, whenever we are trying to use this agent, in simple we can just use this command and it will take whole thing as a single prompt, and it will go through each and every step instead of we direct manually providing all these steps for in each and every session. Same way we have the pipeline architect. In this way you can just create any agents you want. I just wanted to mention one more thing in this reviewer here. Whenever you are trying to push the code to the GitHub or production or wherever, we obviously need to review your code, basically pipeline. For example, if you make any change in the pipeline, we obviously need to review that pipeline, right? So instead of we writing a prompt to what all needs to be reviewed, we can just simply use this Beam reviewer agent here. It does its job very flawlessly by following all this checklist and everything. And if you see here, we can also mention the output format. Once review is done, what all needs to be coming as an output. And the next thing is hooks are like, simply, it's are like a real blocks or like reminders. So it's basically restricts the Claude Code what to use and what not to use. For example, block command prod commands.sh. So what this hook does, it says Claude Code to block the prod GCP related operations and maybe GCS and BigQuery commands. So you can just if you are not sure how to create this, you just ask Claude Code to create these kind of hooks and it will create it by itself. So and the next is settings.json, the other one is mcp.json. Now first come back to this settings.json. So if you see here, this is like very straightforward. This provides the Claude Code the permission which commands to allow and which commands to deny. In the allow commands, I will give basic read access and basic Python scripts like reading the scripts or editing the scripts, maybe listing the files in the GCS buckets, like basic commands. Now when coming back to the deny commands, I'll just deny all such commands. You can just go through this, like these are very risky commands, so I usually say Claude Code to deny running these commands. And I also mentioned the hooks here. So basically whenever we create the hooks here, the way we need to use it, we need to mention these hooks here in this settings.json. If you see, I added this block prod commands.sh hook here under this settings.json. And same way we can just put whatever hooks we created here. And the last and important thing is mcp.json. So basically this mcp is like an USB to the Claude Code. If you take a computer, for example, using an USB cable we can connect computer to the other devices like keyboard, mouse and few other devices. Same way, using this mcp we can connect our Claude Code to outside tools, maybe for example in this case BigQuery, GCS or any outside tool. Now the question is, how can we use this, or how far in the first place how can we create this? You don't need to do much engineering here. You just directly ask the Claude Code to add a MCP server to this project on this BigQuery. It does its job. You don't need to do much anything, and next time whenever you ask the question to the BigQuery, it will just use this MCP server and it does its job. So to summarize what exactly we discussed. So Claude Code is basically a terminal agent, and this Claude.md file is a brain for the Claude Code, and it loads at the start of every session. And the next comes the rules. So these are basically the rules which we usually provide to the Claude Code. So whenever the file matches, it will use the specific rules. And the next comes the skills. So instead of writing a detailed prompts every time, we just create a skill and you just type the / skill name and it will use the skill instead of you writing a prompt every time. And agents, we usually invoke this. What exactly that means? Agent is basically a mini Claude Code. So instead of creating a prompts and creating an agent, giving the instructions to the Claude Code every time in the detailed agent way, you can just provide this agent and in simple terms like use this agent and do this task. Settings.json is basically the commands or in simple terms you can say it basically gives the allow and do not allow cloud commands or whatever basic commands. Hooks are nothing but, as we discussed, it are basically enforced the way, or in simple terms we are saying Claude Code, the exact block actions and everything. Now, yeah, if you guys wanted to try it out by yourself, just set up all these things and set it up by yourself. You will see a lot of difference before and after setting up this Claude Code. You can just take few demo prompts here or just Google it, or however, just try it out by testing out how your Claude setup goes, and let me know in the comment section how it went. If you really find this video very informative, please hit a like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you will get new updates whenever I upload a new video. Thank you for watching.